Hello and welcome to the Fix Your Fatigue podcast. Whether you can't get out of bed in the morning, your energy crashes throughout the day, or you're a biohacker looking to optimize your energy, productivity, and focus, this podcast is for you. I am Dr. Evan Hirsch, and I will be your host on your journey to resolving fatigue and optimizing your energy. And we'll be interviewing some of the top leaders in the world on fatigue resolution. Welcome. Hey everybody, welcome to another amazing episode of the Fix Your Fatigue podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Evan Hirsch, and today I've got with me Michael Collins. Michael Collins has been completely sugar-free for over 30 years. I'm so impressed with that. He is a past chairman of the board of the Food Addiction Institute, which is a 501c nonprofit that helps raise awareness about processed food and sugar worldwide, and is the founder of sugaraddiction.com, which has been helping thousands successfully quit sugar for over 10 years. Michael and his wife raised two children sugar-free from the womb to 6 years of age. I'm going to be really interested to find out what happened at that point. For over 30 years, Michael has worked closely with others to help them regain lives ravaged by various substance use disorders. Mike, thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor. I really appreciate it.
You bet. So let's dive in here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? Why sugar?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. And I grew up as a regular kid, basically. Like my mom was a sugar junkie. She loved sugar, and she had a stash. We all knew where it was. She thought we didn't, but we all knew where it was. And we would eat bread and butter and sugar sandwiches, and we would, make Kool-Aid with 3 times the sugar, and we had all kind of whatever. There's a great YouTube video on 60 Minutes. It's Ed Bradley talking to Eric Clapton, the great guitar player, right? And Eric asked him, they're sitting in a $7 million Antigua treatment center that Eric built with his own money to help people. And Ed Bradley from 60 Minutes says, so Eric, this addiction stuff, this all started with heroin, right? And he said, no, Ed, it started with sugar. And I'm like, he said, I used to eat bread and butter and sugar sandwiches when I was 5 years old and 6 years old. And I said, anything that would change my state, I would do. And so, that was me. I mean, I didn't realize that was what was happening. I was a kid. I mean, if I didn't scrape out a half of an inch of sugar at the bottom of the Cheerios, and I didn't have enough sugar, we had unfettered access to the sugar bowl, right? And so, fast forward, regular kid, all kind of treats and ice cream, and my father loved it, and my mother loved it, so we always had all kind of stuff. And I found beer at about 13 or 14, and I could talk to girls, and I knew I was changing my state there. That I realized there was an emotional lift, like when we were kids, they call it liquid courage, right?
Right.
So that party lasted till I was about 28, and we can talk about that if you want. I'm kind of an open book, but we stay on the sugar. But I got sober at 28 and literally went right back to the sugar, right? As did a lot of my fellows in the recovery movement, the recovery groups. They gained, like, not the freshman 15 in college, like the freshman 50. Like in the first year of recovery, they would gain 50 pounds because they all substituted the sugar, right? Mm-hmm. So I was kind of athletic and I'd gained 20 pounds, and, my face was all broken out, and, it was just, I was feeling lethargic and anxiety and stuff. And I realized I was drinking a lot of caffeine too. And I realized that I had literally substituted one drug for another, right? I had gone back to the sugar and the caffeine and the flour and all these kind of stuff. And I didn't eat any real food, to be honest. I mean, honestly, I did not. If there was, if there was a tomato in the pizza, then that was the food that I ate, but it was all just junk. And so I started to study it. I read a book called Sugar Blues, which was written by a guy named William Duffy. William Duffy ended up marrying Gloria Swanson, the famous movie star. Oh. And they promoted that book in the early 80s. It was in the 70s. It was produced, but they redid it in the 80s. And yeah, and so I just kind of got it in my head, and then like like you said earlier, my wife and I, we raised the kids, and I don't know how I talked her into it. Now, we're not married anymore, but at that time, she during the entire pregnancy until they were 6, they did not have any sugar, right? And I just really believe their brain developed better. I mean, it wasn't that difficult in the first 2 or 3 years, but when they started to socialize, it started to get more difficult. And then I went on to have a regular life, a regular business career. And, I didn't use sugar or flour, like you said, for many years. And then I kind of decided made some good stuff that happened in my life. And I decided that what do I want to do with the rest of my life, And this is helping. I had always helped people because they would always ask. And I helped people in recovery get off drugs and alcohol and stuff. And so, 10 years ago, I got the name sugaraddiction.com, and, that's the podcast version, Dr. E. It usually brings up more questions than it answers, but that's the short version, how I got here.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being vulnerable with us. Yeah, it's that journey, right? Where you realize something and then you're able to help others with it. I so appreciate that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about what Eric Clapton said on that interview about, sugar being the gateway drug, or being, it all started with sugar.
Sure.
So why is that? Why does it typically start with sugar?
No, that's a great question. And I think the one that is the center of my work today in doing podcasts and getting the message out and running Sugar Addiction and the summit and stuff, and the summit science people have really, in the last 5 years that we've been doing it, it just accelerated. It's just exploded. And the answer to the question is that sugar affects the brain reward systems, right? Mm-hmm. Dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, oxytocin, even the adrenal glands are affected by sugar. And the dose makes the poison, right? So we didn't take a little bit of heroin, you take a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of pot, a little whatever, but we are pounding as average, this is an average person, 17 to 20 teaspoons a day. So think about an obese or overweight person doing 20, 30, 40, and teenagers are doing this because they're, 30, 40, 50 teaspoons of sugar a day in drinks and whatever. And so it really, the science has now in the last 5 years exploded to understand that, and Dr. Lustig, the great eminent researcher, says, it's the fructose molecule. It's, yes, the glucose molecule. And for your listeners, table sugar is half fructose and half glucose. And it's the fructose molecule that is the offending molecule. And I've asked these guys, the researchers from Cornell, Cantley, and Lustig, and different, is fructose a psychoactive drug? And they don't even let me finish the statement without saying, yes, it absolutely is, right? And see, they don't come from no deference to them, but I mean, no slight or anything, but they don't come from an addiction recovery background, right? And there are a lot of 12-step food groups who figured this out anecdotally 10, 20, 30 years ago. And people have had a lot of success by eliminating sugar, flour, and some caffeine. And now the science is proving it out, right? Now the science is proving all the things like in your work and addiction work and definitely health. I mean, the glucose stuff is going to destroy the body. It's going to give you insulin resistance. It's going to give you metabolic syndrome. But the reason people can't quit, the reason they can't stop, is because of the brain reward chemicals that the fructose is blasting every day, all day, every day. So I don't know if that answered the question, but
yeah, that's perfect. So it's producing like the endorphins and the enkephalins, and so it's creating that narcotic effect.
100%, absolutely. That's what's happening. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I wanted to talk about on this podcast that I've been now bringing more public is this concept or this construct of amotivational syndrome. Now, amotivational syndrome is a very common knowledge syndrome and thought process in the recovery of marijuana abuse. Okay. Literally the stoner, you can't get up off the couch kind of thing. And it's like, it's talked about, it's understood. And I believe in the work that I've done and the people that I've gotten off of sugar, that not only do they get healthier, which is a byproduct of it, and lose weight, which is another byproduct, but their energy levels skyrocket. And I think that, I know that sugar is an amotivational drug as well. Okay. It literally zaps you of your energy, because think of it this way, like, in order to get a dopamine reaction in the body, there's usually an effort required. Exercise, a hug, get new food, different thing, whatever it is, there's a need to do something. Look, you can sit on the couch and eat sugar and still get the dopamine hit, right? So there's no need to do any exercise. So your dopamine manipulation is handled by the food, right? The sugar. So what I'm trying to get at here is that, we have hijacked this system that evolved over millions of years to keep us alive and chase sex and chase food and get a dopamine hit by just ingesting sugar. Why would we want to do anything else? Because this beautiful system allows us to get the reaction or the result without the effort. Okay, if that makes sense. So.
It does, yeah. So let's kind of dive into my work a little bit with fatigue. So then, what is actually happening? What do you think is happening with, why is that increase in sugar intake relating itself to a decrease in energy or an increase in fatigue? Is that insulin spike, or what do you think?
I think it's all a combination. Yes, I do. I think the insulin spike takes a lot to recover, a lot of energy to recover. It's all proven that it whacks your immune system. It just throws you off. One of the things the world changes, the world changes with something called a continuous glucose monitor. And Google and Amazon are working on it now, right? People can't see the spikes when they eat this stuff. They can prick themselves 20 times a day and chart it out if they want with the basic glucose monitor. But when you can see it on your phone, because you got a little patch on your arm, these are prescription now, and they're invasive because there's a little needle, and they're, you got to have insurance or whatever. But when Google and Facebook or Google and Amazon are working on, when you got a little Fitbit thing and it's non-invasive and you can just see it on your phone, because they have these, but they're not that great yet. And then people can see what's going on, right? They can see this up and down in the glucose and the insulin. Add that to what we discussed before about the brain reward chemicals being activated in just by ingesting this stuff, and you got a perfect storm. You have a perfect storm for that. And really anecdotally, and I don't want to, it's not causation or what, I don't know that phrase, but I've seen so many people's energy. I've seen people with chronic fatigue, people with all kind of different low energy stuff, just have their energy skyrocket just by getting off of sugar. So yeah, there's a lot of physical components to it and a lot of mental ones.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that as well. One of the first things that I do with people is I have them get off of grains and sugars. I just find that that's so potent, especially those simple grains that, get converted into sugar so quickly.
Well, you're advanced in that, because it takes me a little bit to get the folks to understand the grains part. They kind of get the sugar part because there's, whatever, but they don't quite get the grain stuff. It's so good for you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you're ready to stop missing important events and opportunities, have robust energy, and be excited about life again, please go to fixyourfatigue.com and sign up for a free strategy session with me. Or register for a power-packed webinar showcasing my unique process that's helped thousands of people resolve their fatigue. You can take control and fix your fatigue, I promise. The tools are waiting for you at fixyourfatigue.com. When they come to see me, they're usually at a point where, they've changed their diet, they've changed their lifestyle, they've tried to prioritize sleep, drink more water, all those things, and they're still not better.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much because they're highly motivated. They want to excel in their lives and whatnot. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
so important. Inflammation, all these things that sugar causes.
That's another thing, the inflammation that it causes. I mean, the body needs to work to heal up,
Hmm.
right? And if it's constantly inflamed, it's constantly trying to help itself come back to homeostasis and to heal up. And really, I mean, I can tell you a story, especially about the grains and the fruits, and you were talking about, you might get into that,
Yeah.
is that I was 25 years into this thing, and I ate grains, oats, rice, brown rice, and I ate white rice occasionally too. A lot of fruit juice, mostly organic orange juice, thought it was good, and a lot of fruit. And I had, in my 50s, adult acne. I had, my hair was falling out. I was losing teeth. I hadn't had a cavity in 25 years, and started getting some cavities. And it was like, and I had this little cognitive decline as well, like both my parents died of Alzheimer's, and I'm like, I'm not going down that road,
Hmm.
and it was like, it wasn't just walk into a room and you forgot where your keys or, what you came in there for. It was like I had 2 browsers open. I go from one browser to another, I can't remember.
Hmm.
Well, all that stuff, when I got off grains and fruit, just went away, just like that, just instantly.
Wow.
And I had adult acne my entire life, from a teenager to my 50s, and it went away just like that. And so that type of inflammation, your body's always trying to heal from, right? You're always trying to get better. Your body's going to want to default to health and wellness. And if it's fighting against the inflammation, the metabolic syndrome stuff that is sugar causes, you're just going to be tired and simple.
Yeah. Well, and what I think too, when I see that sort of picture where you've got the acne and it goes away when you come off of sugar, is also that oftentimes there's bugs that are being fed by sugar in the
Mm-hmm.
gut,
Sure.
and that inflammation that's in the gut gets reflected onto the skin.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned in the summit this year from a Dr. Ann Barter, I think, is that 95% of our serotonin is created in the gut. It's like, so I thought this is a brain chemical or whatever. And here we are, if you don't have the right whatever it is, the
Microbiome. Yeah.
microbiome, there you go. If you don't have that, if you don't have your great gut flora, you're just not going to have. And what SSRIs are, what people know, Paxil and these kind of Zoloft and all these kind of things, they're playing with their serotonin rebuke uptake. They're playing with your serotonin. This is how you feel better, right? This is the reason you're taking this medicine, right? And so if sugar is destroying that and not helping you form the good serotonin so that you're feeling good all the time, again, you're fighting against a body that wants to be healthy, and you're going to be tired, because one of the best remedies is sleep for healing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really good points. So yeah, let's talk about fruit, and let's talk about like how much is okay. Is any fruit okay, and how much other sugars are okay?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Again,
Putting you on the spot.
well, no, it's like I can't take everybody. I can't take someone from standard American diet to what my diet is today without some bridges, almost like Suboxone or methadone. They have to be able to move through a process, and I've eased up on that over the years, because I came through the recovery world as an abstinence-based guy, right? And so until the opioid crisis came through, I was still an abstinence-based guy. Look, if you're going to quit something, quit it, right?
Hmm.
But in the world of opioids, you got to be alive to recover, right? You can't just so if Suboxone works for a year, then fine, you're still alive. You don't go out and end up with fentanyl or something, get dead. In the same vein, I have to move people through a continuum or a step down or step up, whatever way you want to look at it, whereby they can eat some berries, some blueberries, some raspberries, some small glycemic, small fructose stuff to help them ease through the withdrawals, because the withdrawals are real, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're very real. They're, you're depressed, there's a lot of lethargy, your body wants to sleep now because you're not ingesting this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at fruit and when I listen to the experts and understand that the body doesn't know the difference between the fructose in a big giant apple or a big giant banana and a Coke, as far as the fructose, the sweet part. And the only place that fructose can be processed is in the liver, right? There's no other way in the body for it. It has to go through the liver. And we have children at 5 years old with fatty liver disease, which is an alcoholic's disease, right? Which is where alcohol is also processed. So I'm telling you all this to tell you that the simple fact of the matter is that large amounts of fructose, no matter how you get it, and think about it, 100 years from now, or 200 years ago, an apple looked like those little crab apples in nature, and banana looked like a little seed pod, right? And it served its purpose. In about 20 days or 30 days a year, this stuff was ripe. You would eat it, and animals would eat it, or humans would eat it and spread the seeds around. Well, for 300 years, we've hybridized this stuff for what? For fructose, the sweet part. Let's look at navel oranges, for goodness sakes. This thing does not have any seeds. It's impossible to propagate in nature without human engineering, right?
Huh.
And think about the rest of the fruits now with these beautiful packages, right? And so that high fructose content is a little bit of an issue when you're trying to get off of the processed sugar, because the brain, again, is recognizing the signal of fructose as sweetness, and then you're going to begin to crave the processed stuff, the stronger stuff. Think of it having beers and wanting a whiskey. I mean, people don't like my drug analogies, but they're relevant in a lot of ways because of the power of the fructose nowadays. It's like the weed when you and I were young. It's like, it was crap, but today it's so powerful. This is the same thing as fruit, right? Fruit is now very sweet, and it's a big fructose bomb. I don't know if that made sense. And it's, again, difficult for folks to grasp, because about 30 years ago, there was a brilliant marketing campaign. It used to be the green grocer, right? And you would have the green vegetables. And somehow they combined the two to make it fruits and vegetables, right? And so I believe they need to be in a separate category. And I think they need to be treats, and not to say they're not healthy, and not to say that some amount after you're through withdrawals is okay. But I think that people will find as they go through the first 30, 60, or 90 days, that the less fruit that they eat, the better off they'll do trying to get off the processed stuff. Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the challenge, like you mentioned, is that we don't have a continuous glucose monitor right now.
Right.
And so we don't know, like, if you're going to individualize it and say, well, for you, 1 piece of fruit a day is okay, and for you,
Correct.
2 pieces, and for you, 0, is because we don't know necessarily what it's doing to these people. But I would agree. I would say, eliminating all fruit and all sugars for a period of a month, and then adding them back in, one every 4 days or whatever, and watch what happens. Does it increase inflammation, joint pain, whatever?
That joint pain stuff's real, huh? They're like, and as far as the glucose monitor, when people can see that, like exactly you said, when you see a banana does the same thing as a candy bar, it's like the spike is the same to the same level, then they get it,
So what about combining fruit with protein? I've heard mixed things on that it potentially will release the fructose more slowly. Consequently, you don't have the insulin spikes, not as much inflammation.
Right. Yeah. Food combining, kind of an older construct, and it does kind of work a little bit. But the idea that I don't know about that. I'll be honest. I'm not sure that. I think the body's going to find its use for that fructose, and again, it's got to get processed through the liver. It's going to affect the dopamine, serotonin. I don't know. It could, but I also think it might create the reason it's easier on it doesn't hit it with the slam. So one of the big problems is people eat or drink orange juice, or they juice stuff, right? and or juices of all kinds, and that slams the liver hard with no fiber and so you don't get that, what I think maybe protein would do and other foods would do, greens also. A lot of times they say make a smoothie with a lot of greens and some fruit, is that it slows the process down, so it's almost like a time release. It doesn't slam the liver, you don't get big spike and then you're exhausted 2 hours later,
Right.
so yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's a question that I don't necessarily have the answer to, because it is individualized,
Sure.
and like, for example, I find that I do better in my mornings when I have a banana with pecans,
Mm,
and then I put in some mac nut milk, and that's kind of like a breakfast cereal for me.
okay.
But I don't know. I've got some family history of type 2 diabetes, but I'm constantly thinking about, okay, is this really the best thing for me? I'm trying to make sure that I'm eating them, the bananas a little bit more green than they are yellow. But I find that
Right.
I'm also really, if I just do protein in the morning, then I'm actually hungrier throughout the morning.
Gotcha.
And so I'm trying to figure out that balance, but I think it really is individualized. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I agree.
hmm So, and you talked about nature. I think that's such an important point too, is that, we're made for craving these things. Like, there's a reason why we're supposed to get the sugars from nature, but then they've kind of been taken advantage of by the processed food industry to say, hey, we're going to actually trigger those taste buds that you have, so that we're just messing with your innate system's want for this particular chemical.
Right. No, I believe that. That's exactly what happened. I mean, it's kind of like, and again, the drug analogies, but the coca leaf and the cocoa, the cocaine, right? It's like, uh, you probably shouldn't be chewing on coca leaves either, but I'm just saying it's just much slower of a process. And the processing really, and let's get to brass tacks, and I hope you don't mind me speaking freely, but it's a drug, for goodness sakes. It's so processed, so clean, so run through chemicals, turned into a crystal in a powder form. It's no longer a food product. It's not like a honey, or it's not like an apple. It's a processed drug. And just because it's been indoctrinated and evolved into our system over 300 years from the English Empire that grew it out of the backs of slaves in the Caribbean, does not mean that it's right for human consumption.
Right.
And just because it tastes sweet, which is an anomaly in and of itself, because other drugs kind of taste bitter, some of them, whatever, cocaine, they don't taste like that. It's just a strange detour in human history, an anomaly that we may need to change. I mean, science is now proving that we may need to change.
hmm Well, I really appreciate that you brought that you actually are talking about it like a drug, and you actually have this, this background with addiction that's not just sugar addiction, because I think
Right.
that people really need to hear that message, that how much sugar is a drug and how much effect it is on their body. And, one of the best things they can do for themselves is get off of sugar and see how they do, right? How much time do you think it takes for somebody to be off of sugar to notice a difference?
Now that's a question that I like to, my goal and the bane of my existence is, this is a product, what we do, and this information is a product people need, and that they don't really necessarily want.
Right.
So I have to get them to the point. And what I ask them to do, like if you were to go to an allergist, right? The allergist would scratch your back for pollen and ragweed and right? Whatever it is, chocolate, doesn't matter. They'd find out what you're allergic to, right? And so I just simply ask people to give themselves the gift of 90 days. Start with 30, but the gift of 60 or 90 days. And in that 90 days, just eliminate the things that we've been talking about. Just eliminate sugar, eliminate flour, eliminate grains, eliminate some heavy amounts of fruit, and see how you feel. See how you look, see how where your weight is. Now going in, and this is why the delivery of the message to the people on the standard American diet, is difficult. Going in, people have this thought process. Like the guy who has to quit thinks he has to quit drinking. Do I have to do this for the rest of my life? And that's a scary, crazy thought, right?
Right.
Birthdays, bad, and everything. Am I ever never going to have a celebration? And my mom. And so this crazy anxiety, which is partially their sugar addiction. But anyway, anybody that gets 90 days in never asked that question. Anyone who really, truly did the experiment, did their own scratch test, give themselves the gift of 90 days, those folks never asked the question in hindsight. They already know the answer because their skin looks better. They've lost weight. They're sleeping better. They're no anxiety. They don't pee all night. So many benefits. People have gotten off meds, SSRIs. I mean, nowadays there are so many Virta Health and so many people who have been relieved. They have been cured, not relieved, cured of type 2 diabetes from this process of eliminating ultra-processed carbs from their life, right? And it's only a matter of time before those stories are common knowledge. It's nowhere near common knowledge today, but when you can cure type 2 diabetes, just no medicine, no metformin, nothing, then the world is changing. So if people would just give themselves that little time, that experiment, but they're so afraid of it because there's nasty withdrawals, I'm going to be honest, and anxiety withdrawals and mental stuff. And really in the first year, this is lore in the weight loss industry where people lose a substantial amount of weight and then gain it all back or then some. And the way they lost it is restricting carbohydrates, ultra-processed carbohydrates and sugar, right? They restricted it. And so then they couldn't do it because they didn't understand what was happening to them emotionally, that they had used this as an emotional crutch through their life to process difficult emotions. And this is a foreign concept for people. Again, back to the drug analogy. Very, very well known that if you started drinking beer and doing drugs at 15 or 16, that's when you stopped growing emotionally. This is a construct that's replete through all of the literature and drug and alcohol stuff. And anyone who has honestly done this and recovered and lost 100 or 200 pounds do it by going 100% absent of these products, had to go through this type of recovery emotionally, not only physically. And so that is it's underground. It was always anonymous. It was always anecdotal. But now the science is there to prove all this, slowly getting out. And it's, again, getting out from health professionals who don't have a background in addiction. So now we've married the two, I think people are going to start to get it, I hope. So.
Yeah, that's so important. I often talk about the inner journey, how important it is for us to continue growing and for us to work on our mindset. And 80% of our thoughts are all negative. And if you don't have good coping mechanisms, then you're going to turn to addiction. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the second most important thing that I talk about, which is this idea that as a child, and probably in the womb, because it does cross the placental barrier, we started playing with our dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. We started playing with our brain reward chemicals. So you're crying, you're hurt, and your mother's busy, and she's got 2 other kids, and she doesn't get down on your level, give you a hug, ask you what's wrong, but she gives you a cookie and points you towards the television, right? Right? And now here we are, we're literally grooving neural pathways in our brain that says stress, sugar, worry, sugar, pain, sugar. All of these difficult emotions, normal life stressors. When was the last time you saw a movie where a girl got dumped and did not have an ice cream party with her girlfriends? This is now a cultural norm that we can ingest these large amounts of sugar when we have a difficult emotional situation. And this is when people if they give themselves the 90 days and they make this connection, that when they slide, because people will get 90 days and disappear on me, right? And when they come back, they end up saying, well, I was at this birthday party, or well, more often than not, they'll say, my mother died, I got divorced, and they were dealing with some, emotional situation, and they just went to the old fallback, right? And that was a sugar. These are people that don't drink and don't use drugs. But they went to the societally acceptable emotional management tool, which is sugar and ultra processed carbs. So it's a little deep, but it's not that deep. It's not that hard to understand. And sadly, people like you and I have to repeat it over and over for folks until it becomes more common knowledge.
Well, it's hard when there's a drug that's right there in the grocery, that you can buy,
Exactly.
for
Exactly.
pennies. Right?
Exactly. Pennies
Yeah.
is right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so, what I find also with addiction sometimes, whether it's smoking or alcohol or sugar, is that you have to replace it with something,
Mhm.
like in order to get that coping mechanism or something like that. Is there a favorite tool that you have? Like, okay, if you're going to go off of this in order to create a better coping mechanism, I recommend that this becomes your new thing that you reach for.
Yeah, no, you're way advanced. And like I get interviewed a lot on health podcasts, go whatever, and you're way advanced in understanding that's exactly what has to happen. Exactly what has to happen. People have to figure out that they need to go for a walk, get a hug, um, play a sport, get a massage. They have to figure out other self-soothing methods that require usually some effort and some time, because you go for a nice run or a nice walk, go to the gym, lift weights, you got that little buzz, right? Well, that's the same buzz that you thought you don't really. The funny thing is, like, when you get to be an adult, you're not really ingesting sugar to get a buzz. You're just getting back to normal. You're just trying to keep up your level of serotonin and dopamine, you know what I mean? But when you have an activity that you substitute exactly what you said, and it's normal, go to the yoga class or do whatever, where you can manage your emotions in that way, because we all need it. We all need some sort of stress management in our life.
Right.
And if we don't have that stress management, we will revert to what our neural pathways have been trained to do since we were babies, right? And that is reach for sugar. So yes, 100%, they've got to figure out a new self-soothing and a new emotional management tool so that they can recover. And that work usually happens after the physical stuff in the first year, where you're facing situations that may be more elevated in stress or worry or fear or whatever, financial, like right now.
Right. So then, is there a particular emotional management tool that you recommend? Is there a particular therapy that you find to be especially helpful?
Walking.
Oh,
Walking
nice.
is the easiest, cheapest. You can do it anywhere, anytime. You don't have any special equipment. You just walk out the door, take a left or a right, and you just do it, right? And if you can integrate that into your life, then you literally, like, you need a drink or you need a Coke or you need a cookie, you need a walk. You will feel it. You will come to a place where, if I don't have a walk, I'm going to kill someone. You know what I mean? It's like you're going to really get to the point where, and whatever turns you on, you know what I mean? Male athletes seem to do a little bit better because they have a muscle memory process that they fall back onto, right? Females too, but they lose weight slower, so they get frustrated. But males, if you notice, the CDC did a thing on The Biggest Loser, and all but one of their folks had gained all their weight back. But if you watch the show, you'll see that most of all of the men were athletes, and it was easy for them to fall back into that exercise. In other words, they were using the exercise in the show for their emotional management tool. And then when they got away from it, they didn't have Bob or whoever yelling at them. They went right back to their regular weight, because they didn't put two and two together. They didn't marry the two concepts,
Right.
So, yeah.
So, and are you saying that if they replace the addictive behavior with walking, that they don't necessarily need some additional emotional support like therapy or coaching or something like that. Are you finding that that's the case?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I must have missed something. I must have
No,
left
no.
something out.
I was
Well,
just making
we
sure.
never got to it really. And, but basically the founder of the Food Addiction Institute, who's still alive, he's almost 80 now. He said, this needs an inordinate amount of support. Okay. And that is, now it's online, obviously, since the virus and stuff, but we were doing it online for, years ago. And, we have thousands of people in Facebook groups and Zoom meetings every week, all week. And the people who make those meetings, the people who build a new tribe, a new community, because we're still outliers. Bottom line, society and even your own nuclear family and your workmates and your schoolmates and whatever, those folks have not yet, they don't want you to leave the tribe. So they're not trying to pull you back so you'll be overweight and unhealthy. They're trying to pull you back because 1,000 years ago, if you left the tribe, you could die. Right? You didn't. So they're trying to keep you in the society that they know. Right? But anybody that's been successful knows that they need to, I love the phrase, you become the average of the 5 people you hang around with, right? Well, now there's actual obesity science, bunches of peer-reviewed articles that have proven the fact that you're going to become the average weight of the 5 people you hang around. This is a proven fact. And so if you're, and a lot of people will think that what I've been proffering over the last few minutes is that it might be a bit extreme. But if you don't join the group of people who believes what I've been talking about, your chances of success are lowered simply because you're not, you're hanging out with people who have not taken the time to research. They're not like the people who visit your clinic or the people that visit my site. Like I say, if you made it to sugaraddiction.com, you don't need to take the damn quiz. You already know. It's
Right.
like, if you've already come this far in your research and your feeling in your own body and your attempts to quit over years or decades a lot of times, then if you don't start to run with, get a new crew, get a new support team, get a new tribe, you're just going to stay in the same swirl of society. What's that great meditation teacher? It's not good to be well adjusted to a sick society. You know what I mean? It's just not. If society is still in this swirl, this process of, giving sugar to a baby, then you're not going to get out of it easily without running with and kibitzing with and becoming friends with and having a support system of people who believe what you believe.
What if your fatigue was not beyond your control? What if you could literally fix your fatigue? Thank you for listening to my podcast, where I bring you top health experts and leaders from around the world to discuss the hurdles and solutions to fatigue and the 33 different things that can cause it. If you're ready to have robust energy and be excited about life again, please go to fixyourfatigue.com and sign up for a free strategy session with me or register for a Power Pack training webinar. You can take control and fix your fatigue. I promise. Solutions and support are waiting for you at fixyourfatigue.com.
I know that's kind of hard ass. I'm the worst thing that I talk about. What I want to say is I'm so far from tough love, it's not funny. But this is a situation where there are a few constructs that need to be understood and need to be emphasized. And then I have to let the people make their own decisions,
Right. No, yeah, I'm big on that too. I think it's important to educate folks and say, this is ideal, but there's some flexibility in here because we don't want you to go crazy.
Right. And they will. Crazy is not it's not a good word these days, apparently a politically correct word, but the withdrawals make you think you're going crazy. And your mind will say, I have to have this. Look, if I told you to stop eating broccoli or steak for a couple of weeks or months or whatever, they say, I like steak or I like broccoli. You'd be like, okay, I'll do it. But when I suggest, not tell, suggest you to quit eating sugar, like, people get all weird on me. It's like, I don't know. You get it.
Yeah, it's that relationship. I mean, I think the thing too is that there's such a huge emotional component to food and its relationship to family. So,
Yeah.
are you trying to tell me that, people ask me, are you trying to tell me that what my grandma was feeding me was toxic?
Ooh.
Because she was making me this cake? And it's
Mm.
like, we equate that love with sugar, love with sweetness. Have in Judaism we have the Jewish New Year. It's have a sweet New Year, and we cook things that are sweet. You put like raisins in your challah and stuff like that. So it's like,
Sure.
there's like this association between love and sugar, and that makes it even harder to give it up, right?
Absolutely. I mean, nail on the head, 100%. That's exactly correct. My mom, I'll tell you a story. My mother's mother, my grandmother, died when she was 8 years old, right?
Mm.
And so she had to, her father had, my grandfather and her had to move in. She was the youngest, everybody else was gone. They had to move in with my great aunt, or her aunt, his sister, and she owned this big hospital. It's a long story. It's a rural hospital. But across the street, their cousin Jim owned a general store, right? And so my grandfather set up this um, deal with his cousin that anytime my mother walked into the store, she could have anything she wanted for free, candy, right? And so my mother genuinely believed that sugar was love. She really believed it. And I think a lot of people, exactly we were talking about your religious stuff, is exactly correct. People cook and they bake, but it came through an evolutionary process that took 200 and 300 years. Back
Mhm.
in the early days when sugar just started to come from the slaves in the Caribbean, the average English person only ate like 5 pounds a year, and that skyrocketed over 100 years to 100 pounds, and now to 150 pounds. And it's like it became, vendors understood how to sell it, whatever. They started making up holidays that had it. All the holidays, they didn't start out as the Easter Bunny and Valentine's candy and holiday. They didn't start out this way. Genuinely, if you do the research, they did not start out as candy holidays. Even Christmas, they did not start out this way, but then they evolved to it, right? And so, we've got to, sadly, Dr. Lustig, and I keep quoting him because he's like he's done the research, he's still doing the research. Says this is a 30-year game. Okay, we're 6 or 8 years into a tectonic shift, like
Mm.
bathroom or condoms in bathrooms, seatbelts in cars, smoking, drinking, and driving. We are just now, the science on those four things said this is what we need to do, but society had not caught up with that norm or that idea. The societal norm was different. And that's where we are with sugar. We're in the middle of that grading time period where some people think about it, yes. Some people think about that's crazy. I'm still going to give my kids sugar. I don't want to deprive them, blah, blah, blah. You
Right.
know, it's hard. I mean, and genuinely difficult. And I feel for people as they move through the educational and informational process and the process of trying to stop if they do that.
Yeah. So do you have any tips on how to break that association of love equals sugar or sugar equals love?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Mm.
Yeah,
Is it just
I,
awareness?
it's awareness. It's the science of it all, and to realize that it's not love. It really truly is not love. Love is love. Kind acts are love. Support is love. These are love. And that sugar is a shortcut. Sugar is a shortcut to everyone feeling better. Okay, and like it's like everyone feels elevated a little bit. There's a little bit of, you know, dopamine flowing and serotonin flowing. All these things are flowing when you have a concentrated big cake that everybody eats. You can see it with the children who are not like everybody sees what happens when the cake and ice cream comes out. We got these wild kids running around because they're so hopped up. But the same thing happens at a lighter, lower level with adults, And so if we can remove that, if we can remove the idea that they're intertwined, and it is what I mentioned a couple of times, that uncoupling that separation of the societal norms that have been evolved over 300 years and the actual reality and the science, then people change and they get better.
Yeah. I find that sometimes I'll tell people to see it as poison. I'll use this with like getting people off of cigarettes as well.
Sure.
If you look at it, if you understand what it actually is and what it's actually doing to the body, and then you take it to the nth degree and you're calling it poison, then you no longer want to give it to your children.
Right. Yeah.
I think the other challenging thing too, in terms of like making the behavioral change, seems to be getting the buy-in. Like it's always more successful if everybody in the family does it, but
Yeah.
you got to get the buy-in of everybody.
Mm.
Any advice you have on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the modules that we talk about is the societal portion of it, the societal piece of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And very rarely is an entire family ready to do it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually the mom who says they have to feed the kids and feed the husband, and they still want to have these things. And so that's where the new tribe comes in. And there are a lot of people very successful at separating their food from their family's food. So, it is hard, but it is doable. And the same thing goes with workmates, schoolmates, society in general. The societal picture, the societal interaction around this stuff is powerful, damn powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're looking at neural pathways groove to move towards it, and muscle memory, from brain memory to think about having it and being part of it, it's just hard to uncouple. And the only tips that I can have, like I said, is like you need to literally have a group member on speed dial go in the bathroom and say, these people are crazy. Or you can like say have another support system that is not the people that are around you. Because it's hard in the early days to recruit people. Once people get off it, it's a very, very strange phenomenon. They want to help everybody. They want to, because they've been enlightened, or they've been, they feel so good. They just want to get the message, especially to their loved ones and to their family.
Right.
But in the early days, it's wise, and this is a big tip, to not get in the recruiting business, to not try and change everybody. It's to do the airlines thing. Put your own oxygen mask on first. Get solid. Get with your new tribe, get a new group of people around you. And then if you're successful, when you're successful, then attempt to move towards helping them. And another thing too is, if you can get them to be convinced that they can lead by example, that if they change, they don't have to say a word. Weight loss is very difficult to hide. People will start to come to them, and then they can disseminate the information or what's happening with them to the people that are ready, and not to try and. It is really hard because, like I said, the husband or the wife or the kids are not ready, and you are. So, but you still got to get through it. You still got to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mike, I could totally talk to you all day. We're just about out
I've
of
enjoyed
time,
this.
but
It's been great.
this is a lot of fun. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with me and with everybody who's going to be listening and watching this. So, last question is about practical tips and takeaways. What do you feel like is kind of the big takeaway, or if there's one thing that you would want people listening to this to start doing in their lives right now, or what would be a baby step in moving towards an ultimate goal? What do you feel like that would be?
That's a good question. You mentioned a little bit ago about awareness, right? And what I've found, and same to dovetail on the last question, and really the whole thing, is that what I found in the success stories is people are a little bit of a pioneer, right? They're the kind of person that they don't care what other people are saying or doing. They've had a success in sports or athletics or work or school or something. They've moved away from the family of origin or their tribe or their homies from school or whatever, and they've done different things, and they've done their own research, and they've done their own experiments on their own body, and they're not afraid to take and do another one, right? So if this talk has resonated with you, a listener, whatever, then do your own research. Do the experiments that we've outlined. Just use yourself as that human guinea pig. Adopt that ethos of, let's see what happens. Let's take the test. Let's eliminate the stuff for X amount of days and see how I feel, right? And whatever that takes, socially, physically, diet-wise, shopping-wise, there's a lot of ingredients. But if you've done the research and you feel like you've had a success in your life, any kind of success, doesn't matter, and you can translate it here. So don't be afraid. Be one of those pioneers. I think we're all, you and I, and people that are willing to discuss these kinds of things, are societal canaries in the coal mine, right? We're not afraid that, we don't want to die ourselves. And we've discovered something. Yes, we want to get the information out, but I think the people that are willing to have an internal locus of focus for their own self do much better. So, and that reaches quite a few people, because everybody's had a success at something they can translate into this.
That's great. And so if there's a baby step towards removing sugar addiction, is there like one thing that if somebody was like, oh, it's too overwhelming to remove all the sugar in my life, is there one thing that you feel like is the most important to remove first?
Sugar sweetened beverages.
Awesome.
There's a study out right now. It's actually not a study. It's for the first time in history, the American Pediatric Society, the American Pediatric Dental Society, the American Heart Association, I always forget the fourth one, and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which is one of the largest nonprofits in the world, got together and said that children between 0 and 5 should have 0 sugar-sweetened beverages. Now, never had 4 medical associations gotten together and made such a proclamation. Wow. And if you were to just eliminate sugar-sweetened beverages as the first step, you would immediately get some of the benefits we've described, and then you can start working down the chain there, more sugar stuff.
That's awesome. And another good motivator that I tell people is that usually when you eliminate sugar sweetened beverages, you're going to lose about 10% of your body weight. When you get rid of gluten, you lose about 10% of your body weight. So if you want to lose weight, this is another great way of doing that as well.
Absolutely. That's it. I like that. I'm going to steal that right there. That 10% and 10%. I like that.
Please do. And well, what I found is like after the 10% is that then people will lose about 3 pounds a month until they get down to their high school weight, as long as they were healthy in high school and they don't have some sort of thyroid or other metabolic issue.
Nice. I believe that's exactly what I see, You'll fall to a right-sized body. You don't need to exercise. You don't need to do anything. If you'll just eliminate, I call it powder addiction. If you just eliminate powders of any kind, and I'm talking, like these protein powders and all this other crap, just powder, like just eliminate powder or crystals or granules or whatever. Just eliminate that stuff. You will fall to a right-sized body. You don't need to exercise. I mean, you can exercise. The exercise is to help rehab your brain reward system, not to calories to reduce body weight. It's to help to keep you off the stuff, So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So Mike, you've got this great website at sugaraddiction.com. You've got a copy of your best-selling book that it's available to download. You've got the sugar quiz, and then you've got the 30-day challenge. Anything you want to say about those things?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, if you get to the website, you don't really need to take the quiz because you probably already, it's like those alcohol quizzes, you get 19 out of 20 wrong. You're like, whatever. But the book is free, or you can get it on Amazon too. It's free to download on Amazon, and it's free on the website, sugaraddiction.com/book, or right there on the homepage. And the 30-day challenge is just a simple, it's a good first step. There's a lot of information. It's self-paced. You get into both online Zoom groups and a forum, a private forum. No one else knows you're in it. And it's really good support for you. And it's the tiptoe, just a little foot in the water to see if this is for you, to see if this lifestyle is for you. See if you can get along with the people who have quit and had success. We've got success stories of multiple years now. So it's, everybody likes to help. It's a real loving group, you know, and so it's like a strange phenomenon. This happened in the early days of drug and alcohol recovery too. People feel so good they want to help other people do it. So and I'm a big believer in peer recovery stuff. Big believer.
I love that. And that is the best place for people to find you and learn more about what you're doing, correct? That website?
Sugaraddiction.com. Yep.
Awesome.
And if it's, well, yeah, we just had it, but the Quit Sugar Summit is very interesting. You can check that out too. It's a lot of speakers and stuff. Very interesting stuff. That's all the science. If you're a science geek guy, you'll love that.
Nice. And is that also on the site? Can you find it there? Or do you have to go to a different site?
It's quitsugarsummit.com.
Quick. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, Mike, thanks so much for being with me today. It's been amazing having you on. I think people learned a lot today, and hopefully they'll take that step of getting sugar out of their lives.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the work you're doing, and I really appreciate you having me on. So, you know, keep up the great work. And it looks like we do a lot of the same stuff. So,
yeah. Thanks. I hope you learned something on today's podcast. If you did, please share it with your friends and family and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's really helpful for getting this information out to more fatigued people who desperately need it. Sharing all the experts I know and love and the powerful tips I have on fatigue is one of my absolute favorite things to do. If you'd like more information, please sign up for my newsletter, where I share all important facts and information about fatigue, from the foods and supplements to the programs and products that I use personally and recommend to others so that they can live their best lives. Just go to fixyourfatigue.com/newsletter to sign up, and I will send you this great information. Thanks for being part of my community. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. It is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for help with your fatigue, you can visit my website and work with us at fixyourfatigue.com. And remember, it's important that you have someone in your corner who is a credentialed healthcare professional to help you make changes. This is very important, especially when it comes to your health. Thanks for listening, and have an amazing day.